But after a certain time he spoke and opened his eyes. He inquired about the weather, and then about gems which the jeweller Idomeneus had promised to send him for examination that day. It appeared that the weather was beautiful, with a light breeze from the Alban hills, and that the gems had not been brought. Petronius closed his eyes again, and had given command to bear him to the tepidarium, when from behind the curtain the nomenclator looked in, announcing that young Marcus Vinicius, recently returned from Asia Minor, had come to visit him. Petronius ordered to admit the guest to the tepidarium, to which he was borne himself. Vinicius was the son of his oldest sister, who years before had married Marcus Vinicius, a man of consular dignity from the time of Tiberius. The young man was serving then under Corbulo against the Parthians, and at the close of the war had returned to the city. Petronius had for him a certain weakness bordering on attachment, for Marcus was beautiful and athletic, a young man who knew how to preserve a certain aesthetic measure in his profligacy. This Petronius prized above everything. "A greeting to Petronius," said the young man, entering the tepidarium with a springy step. "May all the gods grant thee success, but especially Asclepios and Cypris, for under their double protection nothing evil can meet one." "I greet thee in Rome, and may thy rest be sweet after war," replied Petronius, extending his hand from between the folds of soft carbas stuff in which he was wrapped. "What's to be heard in Armenia? Or, since thou wert in Asia, didst thou not stumble into Bithynia?" Petronius on a time had been proconsul in Bithynia, and, what is more, he'd governed with energy and justice. This was a marvellous contrast in the character of a man noted for effeminacy and love of luxury. Hence he was fond of mentioning those times, as they were a proof of what he had been, and of what he might have become, had it pleased him. "I happened to visit Heraclea," answered Vinicius. "Corbulo sent me there with an order to assemble reinforcements." "Ah, Heraclea. I knew at Heraclea a certain maiden from Colchis, from whom I would have given all the divorced women of this city, not excluding Poppaea. But these are old stories. Tell me now, rather, what is to be heard from the Parthian boundary. It is true that they weary me, every Vologeses of them, and Tiridates and Tigranes, those barbarians who, as young Arulenus insists, walk on all fours at home, and pretend to be human only when in our presence. But now people in Rome speak much of them, if only for the reason that it is dangerous to speak of aught else. The war is going badly, and but for Corbulo might be turned to defeat." "Corbulo? By Bacchus, a real god of war, a genuine Mars, a great leader. At the same time quick-tempered, honest, and dull. I love him even for this, that Nero is afraid of him." "Corbulo is not a dull man." "Perhaps thou art right, but for that matter it is all one. Dullness, as Pyrrho says, is in no way worse than wisdom, and differs from it in nothing." Vinicius began to talk of the war, but when Petronius closed his eyes again, the young man, seeing his uncle's tired and somewhat emaciated face, changed the conversation and inquired with a certain interest about his health. Petronius opened his eyes again. Health? No, he did not feel well. He'd not gone so far yet, it is true, as young Cicena, who had lost sensation to such a degree that when he was brought to the bath in the morning, he inquired, "Am I sitting?" But he was not well. Vinicius had just committed him to the care of Asclepios and Cypris. But he, Petronius, did not believe in Asclepios. It was not known even whose son that Asclepios was, the son of Arsinoe or Coronis, and if the mother was doubtful, what was to be said of the father? Who in that time could be sure who his own father was? Hereupon Petronius began to laugh. Then he continued, 2 years ago, it is true, I sent to Epidaurus 36 live blackbirds and a goblet of gold. But dost thou know why? I said to myself, whether this helps or not, it will do me no harm. Though people make offerings to the gods, yet I believe that all think as I do, all with the exception perhaps of mule-drivers hired at the Porta Capena by travellers. Besides Asclepios, I have had dealings with sons of Asclepios. When I was troubled a little last year in the bladder, they performed an incubation for me. I saw that